All right. I want to go to the Patriot Mobile Newsmaker line, say hello to Troy Miller, who is president of National Religious Broadcasters, also the chief executive officer. Troy, hope you're doing good.
I'm doing well today, Todd.
All right. I know. Just watch yourself the next time you're in D.C. Joe Biden's on the warpath here.
I've heard that. Well, at least he's conscious right now.
Oh, geez. That's fair enough. Good point there. By the way, he did walk off the stage. He stopped, got lost. He tried to shake that invisible hand again, and they ushered him backstage. So good luck to you there, Mr. President. You know, Troy, a lot of people have been talking about Kamala Harris in this group, Evangelicals for Kamala. What can you tell us about these people?
Well, first of all, I think it's a stretch to call them evangelicals for Kamala. I mean, sure, there are people that are for Kamala, but not evangelicals. They don't really adhere to any of the principles that we hold to in the scriptures. They're not pro-life. They don't believe in two genders between just male and female, and they don't believe in marriage between a man and a woman. And even their theology on how you get to heaven is pretty suspect. So I don't look. Kamala is trying to imitate everything that former President Trump is doing, but it's not going to work with real evangelicals.
No, well, I'm with you there, but I am a little concerned because so many evangelical churches have checked out. You know, they're no longer engaged in the culture fight. A lot of people just aren't paying attention, and when they see an ad featuring Billy Graham and giving the impression that Billy Graham is endorsing Kamala Harris, that's what concerns me. And I was glad to see Franklin Graham calling them out today for using his father's video.
Yeah, so was I. I was glad to see Franklin, you know, he stepped up and called him out. And look, this is the kind of deception we've seen, you know, from the left and from the progressives is, you know, this twisting and distorting of reality of the real truth out there. And, you know, Billy Graham, as Franklin said, would have never supported the policies that the Harris Waltz ticket has. He wouldn't support the platform that the DNC is going to talk about next week. And it's just crazy. But you're right. We have a problem. There aren't enough pastors. There aren't enough Christians who are listening to programs like this to get the truth and get the real news out and talk about what this election and what the impact is going to be to evangelicals across this country.
On the Patriot Mobile Newsmaker line right now, Troy Miller from the National Religious Broadcasters. I'm just concerned about this election, and one of the reasons is that we don't know a lot about her policies. She's refusing to sit down to do interviews, and it's almost as if she is being installed as president here, Troy. And I just don't understand why our friends in the secular media world are giving her a pass on that, because I mean, at the very least, she ought to be sitting down for an interview with CNN or MSDNC.
Well, yeah. Look, hopefully they'll come to reality here and figure out that they've got to ask her some tough questions. But whether she'll sit down with them or not, and whether she can really answer the tough questions. And you're right, we don't know. She hasn't really said what her current policies are. We know what her previous policies are. We know what the governor's policies have been, and they've been anything but. We represent and talk about the Christian community, evangelical community, and those policies have been anything but Christian. And so we'd all like to see her say that. But again, look, we need to talk about what the differences is, and we need to get pastors across this country not to be afraid to speak up to their congregations. And they don't have to tell people who to vote for. They just have to tell them the truth of what's at stake and what the two parties really represent.
On that note, how are you guys at NRB doing that, encouraging pastors and congregations to get involved?
So we are. We have a couple of campaigns that we'll be starting. We have some PSA campaigns that'll be going out across the radio that's encouraging people to first of all register to vote. That's our right. That's our God-given right, and I think it's our God-given responsibility in this country to vote. That's number one. And then number two, we have a number of our members, Family Research Council, the ADF, and just a number of our members across that have voter guides that can tell people what the different issues are. And so we're directing pastors and potential voters in those directions.
All right. There's another big story, and I don't want to boast, but I'm going to boast for a moment, Troy. In 2014, I wrote a book called God Bless America, and I wrote a chapter about a Pew study. They went out there and surveyed millennials at the time and said, okay, how do you feel about free speech? And it was a lot of people dismissed the poll because they said, well, only 40% of millennials believe there should be limitations on free speech. My concern was that I feared that number was only going to get bigger as we moved on. And sure enough, there is a new study out by the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. Now, 53% of Americans believe that the First Amendment goes too far. How big of a deal is that, Troy?
Oh, I think that's a huge deal, especially when you look at countries, Canada to the north of us that doesn't have a First Amendment. They don't have a freedom of speech or freedom of religion. You look at what's going on across the European Union and particularly in Great Britain today with the silencing of people and arresting people. I think if we don't hold tight to the freedoms that are given to us by God, the freedoms that our founding fathers set forth for us in the Constitution, we're going to see what's happening in the EU today and what's happening up in Canada come to America very, very quickly.
Yeah, I saw that is insane. The videos coming out of the UK where they're just knocking on people's doors and they're like, "Hey, you know, we're arresting you because of something you wrote on social media." Troy, I would be serving a life sentence right now. I can't go to the UK. Yeah, it's too dangerous.
You and me both.
It's just too dangerous. But again, this is what I love about the NRB is, and I've always believed that as Christians, we have an extra responsibility to protect all of our rights because really, I think the bedrock of all of our freedoms is based on the idea that we are a nation under God.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the foundation of where we stand. We understand our rights don't come from a government. They don't come from any entity. They come from our Creator. They were given to us. Our founding fathers understood this. They wrote these are inalienable rights. They're given. You can't take them away. But we have a government who wants to take them away. And I'll tell you, Todd, the only way they're going to take them away is to take God away. And that's why the church in America is seeing so much, I won't say persecution yet, but they're certainly seeing a lot of alienation and a lot of weaponization by the government today. And again, I think all of those freedoms are at stake if we don't understand that it's our right to vote. And as Christian, it's our right, and I know this gets overused, but it's our responsibility to protect our neighbors, even at the cost of our own comforts. We need to do this. So we really look for people to wake up, start to think about what the real issues are, and get involved in the process that God gave us. Render on that unto Caesar's what is Caesar's, and that what is to God to God.
I love that. Troy, we're going to have to leave it there. Folks, nrb.org, go check them out. Some really incredible resources on their website. Troy, always good hearing from you.
You too, Todd. Keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you, sir. Troy Miller.